things you mentioned last night.
At the end of this video, we'll take a look at Mad Ramp's innovative pivoting ramp system, the safer, easier way to transport your ATVs and snowmobiles. Stick around. Before we get started, I'd like to give a quick shout out to some of our friends. The Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. Search for them on Facebook. Central Minnesota Pond Racing. Search for them on Facebook. The historic Lancaster Motel for the ultimate Eastern trail riding adventure. Crane's Snowmobile Museum at 172 Main Street in Lancaster, New Hampshire. The Vintage Snowmobile Club of America Quarterly Magazine. The Bridge Street Garage Racing Team, the house racing team of the Vintage Snowmobile Podcast. The New Hampshire Snowmobile Museum at Bearbrook State Park in Allenstown, New Hampshire. And lastly, if you decide to advertise with the Vintage Snowmobile Podcast, this could be your advertising message. Good evening and welcome to the podcast. I'm really glad you're here tonight. We have a robust lineup of entertainment, Vintage Snowmobile entertainment on tap for you tonight, including our live guests who are standing by. We'll be bringing them on here in just a couple of minutes. But before we do, I want to make sure that everything is working properly. So if you can see my face and hear my voice, I'm going to ask you to leave a comment. Let me know where you're viewing this from and whether or not you are a new viewer or a regular viewer. Now, to our new viewers who are here for the first time, I thank you so much for stopping by to check us out. Hope you enjoy what you see, and I hope you decide to come back here every week. We're here every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time to discuss vintage snowmobiles. Now, to our regular viewers, I thank you so much for coming back here each and every week. You are the guys that make this program possible, because without viewers, I wouldn't be doing this for very long. So thank you so much for coming on. We're going to take a few quick comments, and then we're going to meet the Bakers, Diane and Jere Baker. Yeah, we're going to be bringing them on in just a second here, but let's look at some comments real quick. Barry Van says, hi. How you doing, Barry? Pat Lima says, I'm here again from Southeast Missouri. Loves what we're doing and says we're doing a great job. And thank you so much for the compliment, Pat, and thank you for coming on here another time. We really appreciate it. John Spranger Jr., regular viewer from Eland, Wisconsin. Thank you, John, for coming on. We appreciate it. Alden Banks, the audio is breaking up. Hopefully it has stopped breaking up because I don't know what I can do about it, to be honest with you. Please, anyone else viewing this, if you're having audio issues, let me know so that at least we know where we're at with this. Thank you for letting us know too, Alden. Bruce Halls from Humboldt, Saskatchewan is in here tonight. I think he's a regular viewer, and we thank him so much for that. Brian Van Haverbeek says, looking forward to tonight's podcast from Mount Bridges, Ontario. Thank you, Brian. Great to see you again. Our good friend Bruce Borovars, who won the 1975 Kilkenny Cup in Lancaster, New Hampshire. How you doing, Bruce? Great to have you on. Appreciate your coming on here live tonight. We've got someone else saying hi, Mike. Hello back. Matt Schaefer from Wabash. Is that Wabash or Wabash? I think Wabash, Indiana. Thank you for coming on, Matt. We appreciate it. Jim Gauchion, loud and clear from Lee Maz. Thank you for that update on how the audio is happening for us. Two more comments, then we're going to get right into our guests here. Carl and Carrie Iskey from Lincoln, Nebraska. Thanks for coming on. Nice to meet you both. Mark Kemmerer from Clear Lake, Iowa, and George Zandbelt from Winchester, Ontario. Now, we'll get back into the comments as we go. In fact, as we bring our guests on, I ask you to please make comments to say hello to them. And also, if you have any questions about the conversation that's happening, please weigh in with some comments, questions, anything that you'd like to weigh in with. So without further ado, let's bring in our guests for the evening. These are the Bakers, and I think their microphone is on. How are you guys doing tonight?
Hi, Mike.
Fine.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So if I understand correctly, you were in your shop with some sleds that you've raced with over the years, and it looks like there's a nice collection of trophies there behind you. I wonder if you could just give a quick introduction to yourselves and what we're looking at for our audience.
Hi, my name is Diane Baker, and this is our shop. And like I said to Jerry, well, this is where the magic happened. So we do have a couple of our vintage racers here tonight, and I'll turn it over to Jerry.
Well, the two sleds that we have here,
And I wonder if you could ask sorry to interrupt, but I wonder if you could ask the camera person to tilt the camera down just a little bit because that banner is chopping your heads off. Perfect, right there. And sorry, Jerry, if you please continue your thought.
okay, thank you. By the way, that's our son Corey behind the camera, so if we want to yell at anybody, we'll yell at him. But
Okay. Thank you, Corey, for doing that, by the way.
the two sleds that we're sitting on are probably two of the sleds that we ran the most. And the 245 RV is a 1975. The Sonic 340 is also a 1975, and they're like brothers that Skidoo made back in 75 to be in the stock competition. Back then, the factories are so competitive that each year it seemed as if one factory tried to outdo the other with a special model, and these were two special models that Skidoo came out with. And at the time, Skidoo was involved with Motoski, so they made the 340 after the Motoski company, and we ran these sleds probably the most of any sleds that we ran. Had very good luck with them. They were built pretty much for oval racing. And I guess every company had them, had their brand, their model. Arctic Cat, Polaris also had model Yamaha. That's what these two are. And the one red sled over in the corner that you can maybe just see a little of, that Corey aims at that. That's Corey's present day oval sled that is also run on the vintage circuit, which is some people might question is, how is that vintage? Well, one thing I've noticed is as we get older, the vintage sleds get newer. And
That's true.
that's a 96 or 7. That's a 97. We have two, but we run them in the vintage oval circuit. So that's the nowadays vintage, and this was vintage. And that's the three sleds we have here.
Wonderful, wonderful. That is really cool. And if I understand correctly, the two of you have both raced, and I think you started what in the late '60s or early '70s. Can you give us a quick story as how that all got started?
Sure. I started racing in the winter of '69, and that was before we were married, and I raced my dad Skidoo. It was an Olympic 12.3 SS, and it didn't make out too well the first time out,
Sure,
but then had kind of a problem out on the track. It was snow. It was the first time I had been out snowmobiling, and I was going for the lead and kind of got thrown off the set. So we cashed it in. I mean, it was the end of the race at that point, so there was no getting back on or anything like that. And had
sure.
lots of, and later in the day, I was able to drive a drag race. It was a TNT with a much larger motor.
Yeah,
I think it's 69, and it had 4 skis on it. It was something that Jerry's brother had put pipes on it, I believe, and kind of rigged up. He was another inventive member of the family, and he put the 4 skis on the. Okay, and so that was pretty exciting to race that in a drag race with other women. And the class that I didn't make out so well in, that was with the ladies as well.
sure, sure. So that with the 4 skis, was that just a one-time thing, or did that give you any kind of advantage as far as either stability or the turning, the steering?
I only ran it in a drag race, straight lining. It was kind of hard to tell, and being a newbie, never having raced before, I was just learning it all. And Jerry may know more about the stability of it and why they did it.
Well, my brother was one to think considerably out of the box on many occasions, and when it came to building stuff and being inventive, uh, he had a Skidoo dealership back then, and it was very competitive in the area. There were 100 plus brands of snowmobiles being sold at that period, and everybody on every corner had a dealership of some sort. So the local races were very competitive because that's what you wanted to sell and you wanted to prove it. So brother built this 4-ski Skidoo to try to make sure that the Skidoos were dominant. It did real well as far as I can remember, but at that point, that time, I can't tell you how it finished. But yeah, the whole principle behind it was if 2 skis work good, 4 skis work better. And
Yeah, for sure. Now, did the race officials have anything to say about that one way or another, as far as whether that was acceptable to race that, or?
I don't think there was much of a rule book back then.
Sure,
We're out in the middle of a field, basically racing, and it was, as long as you had the right size motor, and it was kind of like nobody was gonna. It wasn't as if we had to go through a big heck or tear down.
sure.
Um, it was just, for trophies and bragging rights.
Yeah, there's more people there having a good time.
Yeah, it was a local race, and it was surprising how many people would show up. But people didn't have the internet, and there was outdoor things to do, and that was up and coming. Back in the 70s, 69, 70s, everybody had a snowmobile. So
Yes,
it was, it was a fun thing to do, and people turned out for the event.
Sure.
got more serious for that because we got the itch. Once you do snowmobile racing, you usually are hooked.
Yes. Yeah, it gets in your blood for sure. Now, if I understand correctly, and I'm kind of working up to talking about your recent induction into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, but you not only raced that 69 season, but through the 70s, the 80s, and even into the 90s, which is what gave you such a long list of accomplishments to qualify you for being inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. Do you want to say anything to set it up before we run the clip of your induction?
It was a great honor, and it was a fantastic day, a fantastic weekend, and my family was there with me, and meeting so many people and the folks that put on, that manage the Hall of Fame. And there are many people that make it all come together and work, and they just did a great job. They made us feel special all day long. Got to see some old friends and met new friends, and it was very, very well done. I can't say enough about the group. And there's a story about, how they founded it and all came together. There wasn't a Hall of Fame for Eastern people. It was mainly the International Hall of Fame, which is in Wisconsin. And that is a wonderful organization as well. But it just seemed like there were few and far between for many of our great Eastern riders and racers. And so to have this here now, it's based in New Hampshire and Lancaster, and it's a great event to attend if you know your older racers and you want to meet them. And there's meet and greets and there's after parties, and it just is a really special time for people that are hooked on this racing. And I truly am blessed to have had all the years to race and stay pretty healthy, not too many accidents. If I fell off, I seem to bounce back. And so that was pretty much it. The after party was the Hall of Fame induction was at Crane's Museum, I think next year. And Mike might have to help me out on the date, but it's going to be in September, and I think it might be the 10th in 2020.
Yes, it is the 10th, and I've got a graphic on the screen for anyone who's thinking about joining us next year. And for those watching, I hope that you decide to. And I'm going to do a quick plug for the Lancaster Motel, because that is the place to stay. It's walking distance from the ceremony, and that is where the after party is. And this event books the motel solid every year. So if you're considering this, you want to call right now and book your room right now to make sure that you're not left without a room. But let's get right into that clip of you being inducted, and then once we viewed that, we'll revisit any highlights you want to talk about of your racing career and memories and stories, anything like that. But let's take a look at that clip of you being inducted about a month ago. September 11th is when that was.
The next one is Miss Diane Baker and her husband Jerry. Please come up here. Diane is, like I said before, a second lady racer that we're inducting here today. Her husband told her that she should go for this and just give it a try. She told me, she wrote me a little message saying that she was going to try, she was going to send a resume and see what would happen. Well, this was the most extensive resume this side of Herb Yancey, I'm telling you. And she used to be the secretary in what, USSA or some one of those events. Yeah.
Oh, WSRF, ESRA, and Pro.
She was good at it, let me tell you. The resume was unbelievable, and she says, well, you don't have to put it all in there. Well, folks, I wish I'd have brought my glasses.
Oh my gosh.
My wife, maybe you can go over and get the glasses out of the car.
The car or the Jeep?
The car. In the little pocket in the door. I'm going to maybe try Paul. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Paul's work. Diane Baker inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2021. Diane's first race in 1968 ended in a crash while driving her future father-in-law's brand new 2.3 Skidoo. But in her second race, a drag race on the same day, driving her future brother-in-law's big 640 TNT, she finished with a big win. When her husband was deployed to Vietnam shortly after, it would be 3 long years before she raced again. Diane won 2 races and finished third in points for the 1972-73 season in USSA. She was the only woman in the East to qualify for the Class C final at the World Series in Malone, New York, capturing 4th place. With a series of top wins during the next 3 years, she finished as high point champion in the women's Class 1 for 1977. In 1979, Diane was voted USSA Woman Driver of the Year, received a Sportsmanship Award at Malone, New York, and grabbed a third in both women's Class 1 and Class 2 at the Snowmobile World Series in Fulton, New York. From 1979 to 81, Diane made second in point totals and grabbed second in the ESRA Snowmobile World Series at Cobleskill, New York. She won a first-place trophy in women's Class 2 at the 1985 ESRA Snowmobile World Series in Schroon Lake, New York. Diane made women high point champion in Mod 1 in the ESRA division from 1981 till 1986. She made second in points for the 1986-1987 season and took second in the Snowmobile World Series at Skowhegan, Maine. Diane was ESRA's high point champion from 1988 to 1991 in women's Class 1 and Class 2. She was best overall champion in the men's division in Mod 1 and Mod 2 for 1991 and was named once again Woman Driver of the Year. She took the 1992-93 season off to work as a race official in the paddock area, but she resumed her winning ways, making High Point Women's Champion from 1994 to 1997 in Mod 1 and Mod 2. Miss Baker tried her hand at snowcross racing from 1998 to 2000, picking up wins at Tupper Lake, New York, Vernon Downs, New York, Stevenson, New York, and Pulaski, New York. Diane was on the USSA Eastern Driver Committee, the Eastern Board of Directors in the WSRF, the ESRA, and Pro. Was the secretary for some of these organizations and was a certified New York snowmobile safety instructor for 14 years. Safety instructor, yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. Welcome, please, Miss Diane Baker.
Thank you.
So how cool was that to see that moment again, to relive that?
Well, actually, I wasn't watching.
That's right. You're on the other side of the screen, aren't you? But
Camera watching for me.
sure.
And, yeah, that was a real special moment, and they kind of razzed me there at the end about the snowmobile safety course, and it makes me laugh because it's right around the corner, and the club is preparing to do that in a week or two, and it's a way of giving back for all the years of you just, when you get so much out of a sport, you want to give back to it, and it's our classes at the club which is the Ohio Ridge Riders. I'll give them a plug, and it's in Ohio, New York, which is a little confusing, but we focus on our youth there in that area. It's November 13th, and if you need more information on that, you can, well, if you're a New Yorker, or actually they reciprocate other states, but you could go Ohio Ridge Riders in New York State on Facebook. They have a a site, and also the New York State Park Association, they have a long list. I just feel very strongly about that, and even though in my racing career it's kind of a conflict of entertainment, let's say, it's kind of that's where you want the kids to do coursing around, out on the racetrack. And
Yeah.
well, enough about that. But I was blown away by the the Hall of Fame, the induction, and it's something very dear to me. And that's pretty much it on that subject.
Sure, sure. Now we've got some comments coming in, comments and questions. Let's take a look and see what people are saying. We've got Skip Estes saying he loves the 75 RV, the one that you're sitting on. We also have Michael Carvela, regular viewer from Upper Peninsula of Michigan, says this is a great show. He's enjoying what he's seeing with you guys. We've got Clint Bruderer saying hello from Logan, Utah. Bruce Hall's wondering about the 4 skis. He's wondering, how did that handle?
Well, it was not everything that my brother had hoped up it would be, because I think that was the one and only time that it ever saw the racetrack. But then again, that was so long ago that I may not remember all the details on it, but those old sleds and the tracks that they ran on back then, I think it was pretty much, if you could hang on, no matter what you had on it for speed, but I would assume it had to create some stability, because people were trying to widen the front ends and do everything they could think of to get them to stay right side up. And then,
Sure.
of course, they ran on tracks that were snowbound, they were a cross between snowcross and oval. There wasn't ice tracks like we ran on for most of our career in racing. They came out with a broom and swept the snow off, and back then it was like, hang on, you get what you get. And I guess it worked out okay. I guess on the positive side, I don't remember them that they broke off or anything, so they must have had them built pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. Because the thing that I wonder about, just looking at the images of that, and I'll pop the image back on the screen here, is I'm thinking that I'm just guessing here, but it seems to me that it would almost be like a when you have a car that doesn't have power steering, it's real heavy at low speeds, but once you get up at higher speeds, it's actually more precise. And I was wondering if maybe that was the case as you get that up into a higher speed, if it'd handle better, and maybe more difficult at a lower speed, or is there anything to that theory? Or
Well, like I say, I don't remember a whole lot about the sled actually racing. Mother had the shop, and at that time, I wasn't working for him. And later on, I ended up spending a lot of years there at his shop. When I came back from being in the service, he hired me as a mechanic, and that's kind of where Diane and I, we were married at that point. Corey was coming along, and we were working in my brother's shop. I was working in my brother's shop. We actually lived over top in an apartment over top of the new dealership, so it almost became natural for us to be involved with racing. There were other racers in the shop that were racing in different classes. So on any given night, the shop was full of racers, and we all hobnobbed and talked about different ideas, and a lot of the success of power racing through the 70s and 80s contributed to the shop there. It was called Baker's Equipment. And there was a Skidoo dealership at one point. It was Skidoo and Arctic Cat. And we were in that environment, so that helped us out a lot.
Yeah.
Being working there, and at one point, my brother and one of my other brothers and myself were all running in the same class, so it wasn't uncommon to find all three of us on the track at once.
Yeah.
Diane was running the women's classes, and occasionally, as the years progressed, we ended up with a modified or two in the 250 mod classes, which they had back then for the women. So she was able to run a modified as well. And a lot of that just came about because we were in that shop environment. And so we were very competitive that way. And we learned from each other, and we learned ourselves at the racetrack by observing other people, what they were doing, and the rules back then, well, they still are. I shouldn't say back then. The rules were very strict, and running in the stock classes, you had to work on killing. There were certain rules that you could do, such as clutching. And so we took advantage of everything that we could legally do. And then the rest was left up to the driver. And a lot of we go to the race, and Diane and I were running, on a home budget. And so a lot of times we were banking on the fact that Diane would more than likely, in history had proved it right, that she would do well in the women's class, which would give us a few bucks in our pocket to keep doing it. So, her success was keeping the team going, plus her drive to want to race was also keeping us going, because it was pretty heavy, serious business with us. We were racing roughly 12 to 13 weekends a year, starting usually the last of December. Our first race, we look forward to going to Jackman, Maine for our first race with our Chevy 2 and our flatbed trailer, and we'd head for Jackman after work on a Friday night. That's the way we raced. And, then Corey got to where we brought him along, and he, and we were racing. Yeah, there was a period of time in the 70s where we would race out at Beachport, New York on a Thursday night, get home about 3 o'clock in the morning, go to work in the shop, and then leave on Friday night to go for a weekend of racing somewhere in the sanctioned circuit. And so we were pretty dedicated to the sport in that way. And the fact that Diane was finishing well on most of those races put gas in the tank and kept us going.
That financed a lot of what you were doing.
Yeah, we it was required a lot of work and a lot of dedication, but the friends we met and the experiences we had, we couldn't replace. So we don't regret that in the least. And it's why now we are, consider ourselves professional bench racers. But
Sure.
we still enjoy talking about our experiences and the funny things that happen and not so funny things that happen. But we ended up with life pretty much based around snowmobile racing, and now Corey has been doing it since he was a junior, and that is another success story that we get to talk about. And he won the Junior Eagle River Championship back in 1988. So we've been pretty involved with snowmobile racing most of our lives.
That's awesome. Now, there's another comment coming in that says, this is from August Freeman, says the Baker family got him hooked. Now, is that someone that you've worked with or associated with at some point, or is there a story behind that?
His wife and his son are racers of the past, so to speak, that we all hung out together. We go to the races together. His wife and Diane would run against each other, and Augie would run, and then as their son Augie Jr. started growing up, and they got him into juniors, and we helped them out a little bit with one of their junior sleds, and they only lived like 15 miles from us. So yeah, they're another family racers where the whole family was involved. And you know, Darlene, his wife, she makes a mean meatball sub, and she kept all fed at the races, and then she'd go out and race and come back in, and we'd go over to their trailer and eat. So yeah, they're part of the race family, the Freemans.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, also, we've got Judy Rinaldi, our mutual friend, is saying hello to you both.
Hi, Judy.
Wonderful. And then we've got Bruce Hulls is saying very impressive, Diane. I think he might be referring to that clip of you being inducted. Also reacting to that clip of you being inducted is Bruce Borovars saying congratulations. And then we've got Dennis Chemnitz from Warren, Minnesota saying hello. And then one last comment here. This is August again saying Jerry is modest. He said that you built a junior sprint sled that won 10 races in 1 year. Is there a story behind that? Anything you'd like to share on that?
Well, Little Aug is we call him Little Aug, he's junior, I guess. Maybe whatever, Little Aug to us. He's a very successful machinist that has his own machine shop business now. He probably built a sled 3 times as good as what we built for him. But when he was first starting out, I used to build a few motors for different people, and that was a cool little class. It was a modified chassis with a stock motor in it. And good for the juniors because it was lightweight, it handled well, but yet it wasn't tremendous. You got to tweak every bit. Good. And so the sled worked out good, and we were glad, and he drove it good. He earned the races. He was a good little driver, and so that was a fun to watch. See that. It's always fun to watch other people, be successful in a sport when you're involved. So yeah, they gave us pleasure as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, we've got about 5 minutes left, but I still have quite a few questions to ask you. So I'm going to do what on television they refer to as a lightning round, where we just do some real quick back and forth, quick questions, quick answers. But wondering if you have some of the more notable racers that you've met over the years. Any thoughts about some of that, some of the names and some of the experiences that you had getting to know them?
I can't answer that question in lightning round form.
Yeah.
The 80s and the 70s, and no offense to those that came after that, but there were just so many. The person that I watched a lot before I started and wanted to emulate someone when I met her, she was nothing like I thought, and that was Kathy Nadro.
Yeah.
I just felt when I saw her race early races that was someone that I would try to beat, and she was very gracious when I beat her.
Wow,
I-
that's amazing. Now, you also had a chance to meet and spend a little time with Bob Eastman as well as the Unsers too, didn't you?
Well, I had the opportunity to meet Bob Eastman. He was introduced to us at Eagle River. Wayne Nicholson, who we also traveled around with, a good friend of ours, he introduced Bob Eastman to us. The Unsers, I'm not sure, I don't remember that exactly.
Well, they were at Eagle, but we didn't actually get to meet them. I think there were a lot of racers that were famous in the snowmobile race world that we looked up to. There were predecessors, so to speak, to the sport, and a lot of them have made it into the Hall of Fame. And as far as famous people go, in the race car world, we didn't meet a whole lot of people like that, but we have a lot of friends that have gone on to be very successful in the factory, working with the factory people and so on. And it's fun to be able to say, oh, I know him.
Yeah.
Got the hobnob with them. There was like the Jim Dimmermans and, Jacques Villeneuve and a lot of those people we knew on a first name basis. And that was fun because they've become really famous in the sport.
Sure. Nice. Now, do you have advice for someone who might be getting into racing, considering all of the decades you've been racing? What thoughts might come to mind as far as advice for someone who's thinking about getting into racing?
Well, I would say go to a race and go into the pits and go in with the drivers and talk to drivers, talk to mechanics, get a feel of what size sled you want to race, what you need to know about the rules. There's these guys that are racing, 99% of them will be more than happy to sit down with you and tell you what you need to know and be ready to work. A lot of work will offset a lot of expense. Your talents and your working ethics and your working habits will put you in the winner's circle more than you think. But you need to get information, and information is going to come from other drivers. And so I would say, find a weekend you can go to a race and talk to these guys. We're usually every weekend with Corey around here. We're more than happy to share people, tell them how to set their sleds up, the do's and the don'ts, because it only makes the sport stronger. And if the sport doesn't stay strong, then we don't have any place to go have fun. So, of course, we're going to help anybody that wants help.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's good that you're doing that. And then one final question. Let's wrap it up with one of the craziest or more interesting memories of something really interesting that happened at a race, or did anything come to mind as far as one of your more crazy stories?
Well, there's about 100.
I don't know if I can do it quickly, but there was, I was in hot lap. I was on an 88 Formula MX, and it was just hot laps practice, and it really wasn't handling well, and I ended up with the sled on top of me. It was belly down, and the sled was on the derriere. I received an award for that. It was a Prickled Fanny Award or something. I had the girls that were out there with me in hot laps were trying to get the sled up off of me, and it was so heavy that they would pick it up a little bit and then put it back down again. And
Wow.
that was kind of funny to laugh at now. I didn't get hurt or anything like that, but this goes to show you that, you know, there's gotta stay protected and wear all the gear and everything like that.
Yeah. Outstanding. Well, that's a great story. Any final thoughts here before we wrap it up?
Well,
This has been great. I hope people enjoyed it. And once again, thanks to the Hall of Fame for everything they did.
Good deal. Well, great. Well, thanks so much to both of you for coming on the podcast tonight. We really appreciate it.
it was our pleasure.
Thanks, Mike.
All righty. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Well, how fun was that, guys? That was really cool. Let me switch screens here. We're going to take a look at the rest of the entertainment we have in store for you tonight. In just a moment, we're going to look at some footage that was shared with me a few years ago by Don Arksey. And this is footage from the 2017 Snow Fever Snowmobile Show in Forrest, Manitoba. And just takes me a second here to queue up this video. Right here. Let's take a look.
Hey, we're here in Forrest, Manitoba at Snow Fever Show and Swap Meet. I've got Gord Jester. He's going to tell you a little bit about his machine.
It's a 1976 Merc Snow Pro Snow Twister. Been verified by the Derby Archives as Dougie Hayes' 340 Snow Pro. They made 6 of these sleds in 1976 for the Merc race team. And this one is one of the 2 340s, and this one is verified as Dougie Hayes'. It goes along with my 440 Doug Hayes Snow Pro that I have at home that I'm restoring at this present time. Bought it out of Eagle River, Wisconsin. I'd like to find out a little bit more history, if I could, who raced it as number 54. But it is a very rare, unique, as raced condition sled that Mercuries are my passion, so this is a great sled.
Okay, thanks, Gord.
You're welcome.
Cool deal. Well, thank you so much to Don Arksey for taking that footage at that event. And you know, I'm having a senior moment. That was in Canada, Manitoba, Forrest, Manitoba. I thank him for doing that. Now, also, I want to mention that if you're going to vintage snowmobile events like the one that Don Arksey went to, I highly encourage you to take out your cell phone and take some video footage that we can all enjoy here on the podcast. All you have to do is hold your cell phone horizontally like this for a wide shot, and you can do what Don did, where you're actually talking to the exhibitors, asking questions, interviewing them, asking them to talk up their sleds. Or if you're not so comfortable with that, you can just walk around and take some footage, and I can put some music under it, like we're going to see here in just a moment. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but I encourage you, if you're going to these vintage snowmobile shows and races, please get some footage that we can all enjoy here on the podcast. And before we get into the next item, we do have to take a quick look. Do a quick shout out to our friends at the Lancaster Motel in Lancaster, New Hampshire. Here we go. I'd like to give a quick shout out to our friends at the historic Lancaster Motel in Lancaster, New Hampshire. The Lancaster Motel has been serving snowmobilers since the 60s, and they are the perfect eastern trail riding destination for snowmobilers young and old. The Lancaster Motel is right on Corridor Trail 5 in Lancaster, New Hampshire, with plenty of parking for vehicles, sleds, and trailers. Plus, the Lancaster Motel is within walking distance of Crane's Snowmobile Museum, plus restaurants, shopping, entertainment, and more. Click the link in the description to learn more about the Lancaster Motel. All right, those are our friends at the Lancaster Motel, just walking distance from Crane's Snowmobile Museum, which incidentally is where the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame holds its induction ceremony every September. September 10th is the next one coming up. I hope you'll decide to join us for that. And if you do, be sure and stay at the Lancaster Motel because it's just a walking distance away. And they do book that event solid every year. So if you're thinking about that, call as soon as you can to book your room to make sure you have one available. What do we have next? We have an interview I did with Nick Ruddy a couple of years ago, 3 years ago at the 2018 Goffstown, New Hampshire Vintage Snowmobile Show. That is an excellent show, by the way. They just had that a couple of weekends ago, and they have it every mid-October. If you're near Manchester, New Hampshire during that time of year, that show is very much worth a look. Let's take a look at what we saw that day.
My name's Nick Ruddy. This right here is a 75 Nitro Free Air. We only did that sled for 1 year. It's Kohler powered 440. And then next one over here, 73 Kohler 440 Speedway, Blue Max. We only did that one for about 2 years. And then the 78 John Deere Spitfire, Kohler powered again, 340 Free Air. 81 John Deere Spitfire, Kawasaki Free Air this time. And then a 72 Snowjet Starjet, Hearth powered 292 engine, all original. And then 1969 Yamaha SL 351 with the GYT kit. There's only a couple of those known to be around.
Now, GYT, what is that? Is that something to do with this pipe?
Yeah, the pipes and a few other engine modifications.
Nice.
GYT is, I believe, genuine Yamaha technologies.
Yeah.
And then this right here is an ice skater, 1958.
Never seen one of these before.
It's got a rudder in the back, basically, which is your third ski, and a wheel underneath that drives it around.
Wow.
The story with those is that they got burnt by a bad check that went out of business, so they threw everything in the bottom of Lake Erie.
Oh, really?
So it's pretty neat.
That's a wild story. You don't hear stories like that every day.
And,
That is something else.
if you want, we'll flip it up and you can take a look at it.
Oh, yeah.
It's got under there.
Yeah, let me come around this side.
2 horsepower engine.
2 horsepower.
They claim it to go about 35 miles an hour, but I don't see it.
No.
And you won't catch me going 35 on it.
Yeah. But you're right, though. I bet it's a nice ice fishing sled.
That's pretty.
Get your tip-ups out there. And
I don't know if you can get it, but underneath there's a rudder under there. It turns back and forth.
oh, yeah, let's try it. I'll just put the camera down there. Nice. That is wild. That is truly unique.
And
Wow.
last but not least is a 69 Mercury 250, 25 horsepower kite copper
I'm gonna
engine.
come around on this side. Wow.
Again,
Just
all original. Runs, drives, cast iron exhaust, twin cylinder, horizontal cylinders.
wow. I love that big front end.
It looks like a train.
Yeah.
Basically a boat engine.
That's wild. Where are you based out of?
Charlton, Massachusetts.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so there you have it. That was the sled collection. I think it's a partial sled collection of Nick Ruddy. Very cool to see that. I was especially intrigued by that ice fishing sled. That was really interesting. Never seen anything like that before. If you're viewing this, have you ever seen anything like that before? Let's take a look at some comments before we go on. We've got Oh, yes. August Freeman is complimenting the Bakers, saying they did a great job, and I totally agree. And then we've got Doug Stenhouse saying A1 Snowmobile Show and Swap, November 4th and 5th, Clio, Michigan. Check it out if you can. It's a great event. Thank you for posting that, Doug, and I encourage people to post events in the comment section here, or sleds for sale, wanted, technical questions. I love people to share things because perhaps somebody viewing will have an answer. Especially if it's any kind of a question. But Doug, I encourage you, if you have that, if you're at that show that you're talking about, the A1 Snowmobile Show and Swap in Clio, Michigan, if you have a cell phone, if you could take some footage for us, we'd love to share it here on the podcast. In fact, that is a perfect segue into another option. We're going to take a look at some footage that was sent to us by Dan Cunningham. This is the 2017 Novi, Michigan Vintage Snowmobile Show. Now, Dan just walked around with his cell phone, got some nice footage, and sent it to me. He wasn't, asking anyone to talk up their sleds or anything like that, which is perfectly fine. Not everyone's comfortable doing that. But all I did is I put some music under it, some graphics on it, giving him credit for it. And it's just a really nice way for us to enjoy what's going on, or see what's going on and enjoy what's going on at these shows. Let's take a look. So the point I'm trying to make is if you want to just walk around and get some footage, I can edit it and put some music under it. Or if you want to ask people questions, get them to talk up their sleds, there's no wrong way to do it. We just like to have footage that we can share on this podcast for all of us to enjoy. So let's go now to the Novi show. So yeah, thank you so much to Dan Cunningham for that footage from the Novi show a few years ago. Now, if you are thinking about sending me some footage that we can all enjoy here on the podcast, here is the email address to send that. Mike at that is not that's my website, which I encourage you to go to that website if you want to see a lot of nice vintage snowmobile videos. But here is the email address to contact me about getting footage to me. Now, if you find that the video file is too large, not to worry. There's a link in the description with instructions on how to use either Dropbox or Google Drive to share the file with me. And this is the address that you would send it to, Vintage Snowmobile Lovers at gmail.com. And if you're having trouble with that, no worries. Just send me an email and say, hey, I've got a video file. Not sure how to get it to you. What are our options? And we'll just go back and forth until we figure it out. And I'd love to have some footage from you that we can all enjoy. Now, the last thing we're going to be looking at here on the program tonight is this is an interview with my friend Paul Bellefeuille. He was at a show that I put on a few years ago, 2018, in Derby Line, Vermont, a nice vintage snowmobile show that we had. And he's a friend of mine. I see him at a lot of the shows. And if you watch this podcast, you see a lot of interviews that I've done with him. And the nice thing about him is he does a really good job talking up his sleds with really good information. And let's take a look right now. You'll see what I'm talking about. Meet Paul Bellefeuille.
Hello, my name is Paul Bellefeuille. I'm here today in August. Nice day, beautiful day here in Derby, Vermont, at a snowmobile show. And I'd like to talk to you about my 1978 Yamaha SSR 440. It's built for the 78 Snow Pro racing season, and it's a factory-built snowmobile for Snow Pro racing, which was the high-end class for pro racers. They built 150 of these, and 50 are known to exist. This sled right here is all original. It was stored in the spring of 1978, and it has not been used since, and it was never raced. It was bought as a backup sled out in Washington, the state of Washington, and it was never used. So let's talk about some of the features of this sled. First of all, we have a very low sitting chassis because it has to turn left and go fast. So we obviously need lightweight. So we have an aluminum tunnel, we have aluminum skis, aluminum chain case, 2-gallon gas tank. Now to make it go left, we have this handlebar set up that's offset and with a loop handlebar design. Also very small brake lever. Everything was designed to save weight. We have aluminum skis, and for the first time, Yamaha went from a leaf spring suspension system to a trailing arm. Polaris was using the Polaris trailing arm on their RXLs and was having fantastic wins with it, so Yamaha tried it. At the end of the season, though, Yamaha didn't fare too well in the winning circle. They had a lot of gremlins to fix. The chassis was too long, so the racing legacy isn't really there, but some say this is probably the most beautiful racing snowmobile ever designed.
Yeah, Paul's right. That is a very sharp looking sled. So that is pretty much it for tonight as far as the program. But I thank you so much for joining us. Whoops, I hit the wrong button there. My apologies. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you decide to join us here every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I've got live guests lined up for the next couple of weeks. I want to try to bring someone on live every week throughout the entire winter season. Some weeks it's easier to schedule things than others, but I do my best. But with that, we're going to wrap it up. I thank you for viewing, and let's take a look before we finish at this this video from our friends at Mad Ramps.
It's the ultimate combination of simplicity and ingenuity. The newest way to load, unload, and transport your ATV or UTV. The Mad Ramps Pivoting Ramp System. Made in the USA and engineered for strength and durability. Maneuver through tight places and over rugged terrain with plenty of ground clearance. No licensing, no ongoing maintenance costs, and no storage hassles like trailers. Won't slip or move like conventional ramps. Free up more cargo space in the bed of your truck. Securely connects to your truck's receiver hitch. Easily extends for safe loading and unloading. Seamlessly retracts for highway and off-road travel. DOT approved in all 50 states and Canada. Quickly disconnects in under a minute. A unique space-saving storage system. The Mad Ramps Pivoting Ramp System. Go farther. Go faster. Go safer.
When you order using the link in the description, I'll send you 3 free Vintage Snowmobile DVDs. When you order using the link in the description, I'll send you 3 free Vintage Snowmobile DVDs.